Such stories as H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds and Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea have challenged mankind. So today, man is successfully probing deep into the mysteries of the universe. Can he penetrate the greatest mystery of all, time itself? It took the creative magic of George Pal and the fabulous production know-how of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer to catapult you through time into a world that is yet to be.
Why is it that we usually ignore the fourth dimension? You see, we can move in the other three. As the doctor said, up, down, forwards, backwards, sideways. But when it comes to time, we are prisoners.
Inventor Rod Taylor's breakthrough into the realm of the fourth dimension is defied by his friend Alan Young.
If that machine can do what you say it can, destroy it, George, before it destroys you.
Hello there, welcome to my world of stuff. Today doing a retro film review of a classic from the 1960s called The Time Machine. Before I start, however, if you watch this video and you like it and you enjoy it, why not press that subscribe button that's over there? Like it and subscribe to it, and you will get more of this sort of content where I chat about films and television and books and DVDs and all that sort of media stuff that's very popular with the kids these days. So yeah, welcome and join me in this strange journey. So yeah, The Time Machine. I'm recording this video outside today, out and about on a Sunday afternoon, just been for a swim, getting a bit of exercise, such as it is, and thought I would stop on the way home and just do a little recording. This is a film which was requested by one of my loyal viewers, Paul Gibbons. Hello, Paul, who asked me to do a review of The Time Machine, a part of the retro review movie section on this channel. And I sat down to watch this last week. As you might know if you've looked at some of my previous videos, I'm in the process of putting together my cinema room. It's getting there, it's nearly there. And last week, on a slightly miserable afternoon, I drew down the blinds and I sat and watched The Time Machine again on DVD, Blu-ray, or rather, Blu-ray. DVDs, as if. I watched it on Blu-ray. First film I've watched in my cinema room, so a big thanks to Paul for that suggestion. Yeah, cheers, Paul. And once again, I was struck by what a fantastic, ageless and timeless film this is. Made in 1960 by George Pal, who directed and produced the film. Based, of course, on the classic novel by H.G. Wells, the father of science fiction, of course. He also wrote The War of the Worlds, and between them, those two stories have pretty much defined most science fiction in the 20th century. Time travel and alien invasions are the big tentpole cornerstones of the genre in a way. And both novels ripe for making as films, but I think it was only in around 1960 that the technology existed to do a film on this scale, certainly on the scale of this and the War of the Worlds. This is just a great film. The story, of course, for those of you who don't know it, and it's a very nicely truncated version of Wells's quite dense and absorbing book, which I haven't read for years, and watching the film again makes me want to watch it again. It's the story of a scientist. In the book, I think he's nameless, but here he's called George. I think the intimation is that he's Herbert George Wells. He's a scientist on December the 31st, 1899, and he has a bunch of academic friends who are waiting to meet him for dinner, which he's promised them at his London home. He doesn't turn up. He's late. And when he arrives, he's disheveled and has clearly been through the mill. He's battered and bruised and his clothes are torn and ragged. And he sits down to tell them a most remarkable story. A story that starts with a flashback to a few days earlier when he explained to them about his extraordinary new invention, a machine which he said could cross the barriers and the dimensions of time. He demonstrates it with the aid of a little model of the classic time machine which we see in the film. But his friends are skeptical and they go off promising to meet him again on New Year's Eve. He then carries on recounting the story of how he used his time machine to travel into the future, ending up millions of years in the future to find that the human race has become lazy and indolent and prey to the cannibalistic tastes of the underground dwelling Morlocks, a sort of a degenerate race of humans who've gone underground after a terrible war. En route, of course, he He stops off at various points in history and sees how the world has changed, in a dazzling array of special effects, which still impress even today. In the future, he teams up with the Alloy. He becomes attached to one of them. They're all innocent and naive, and they all they do is just eat and play. They're innocent to the ways of the world. He becomes emotionally attached to one of them, Weena, played by Yvette Mimieux. And eventually he despairs of this race of people who just don't want to do anything except lounge around. And he storms back to his time machine to find that it's been dragged inside the citadel of the Eloi. He has no choice but to make his way into the citadel to find out the secret of the Morlocks. Did I say Eloi before? Sorry, I meant the Morlocks. The citadel of the Morlocks. He climbs inside the citadel and finds out the terrible truth about the Morlocks and their cannibalistic tendencies. They kidnapped Weena. He tries to get her out. He thinks he's lost the time machine, but of course eventually he manages to retrieve it. And he travels back to 1899, where he finishes off telling his story to his incredulous friends, who by and large don't believe him. They wander off, and he is left alone, although one of his friends, Philby, played by Alan Young, clearly has some sympathies with his strange story. But he makes the decision that there's nothing for him in the new century, and we see that he's taken the time machine and disappeared back into the future. I mean, that's the story broadly. I don't think there's any spoilers in this film, because the film itself is 60 years old, and the book itself is well over 100 years old. So I think we all know the story by now. But what is so remarkable about the film, as I say, it does stand the test of time so well. I think millennials and youngsters will probably look at the special effects and say, these graphics are terrible. But they're not. It's really, for 1960, the effects are great. And I think if you watch it, I think certainly for me, it just evokes the time when I saw it the first time, which would probably be back in the 1970s when the BBC used to run great seasons of classic science fiction and classic horror. And I've spoken before about how those seasons of films laid the groundwork for my interest in fantasy and films and television, and gave me this bedrock knowledge that I've built upon ever since. And it's just a film which I can watch again and again. I can never tire of watching it. The Technicolor is so vivid and bright. The design of the time machine, this sort of all brass ornate railings and this sedan chair and the crystal control. It's just so iconic. Such an iconic design. And it's just a great story. The effects, as I say, are tremendous. Rod Taylor, who plays George, I should have mentioned earlier, he's such a great everyman, macho sort of hero figure of the type that we don't really get these days, and we're not allowed to get these days. But he's just solid, a good solid hero figure. And it's just a great adventure. It's not a film that is likely to ever disappoint you. And even now, I've seen it probably a dozen times, and I always look at it and I'm always captivated by it. I'm always drawn in by the story, the visuals. It's a beautiful looking film. As I say, some of the modern generation might sneer at the effects because it's not flashy CGI, but I think that it is timeless. It really genuinely is a great film. It's one of the great bedrock science fiction films of its era. And if you've never seen it, you really must track it down. It's recently been available on the HMV Premium sale, 2 for $50. I know it was available on that, and I think in store you could possibly still pick it up at a bargain price. But if you've never seen The Time Machine, you owe it to yourself to watch it, because the film is so iconic, and of course the story of the time machine has informed all time travel stories ever since, from Doctor Who, Back to the Future. Anything that's got a touch of time travel to it owes its debt to H.G. Wells' Time Machine. A terrific film, a beautiful film. It has special memories for me because I remember watching it as a kid, and as I say, the way it embedded itself in my memory and stimulated my imagination in a way that I don't really believe that today's modern flashy films really can. So that's The Time Machine. I hope, Paul, that this review has served its purpose, and I hope that if you've not seen the film, you will try and track it down, because genuinely is an absolute classic, and it gets from me a mighty 10 out of 10, because it is such a terrific film. So anyway, that's this retro movie review. If you've got any other films you'd like me to look at in this particular section, want to pop them down in the section down below there somewhere. Leave a comment. As I said, like and subscribe to get more content like this, and I will see you soon. But until I do, hey, you know what they say, Keep taking the stuff.